Entrepreneurs Over 40, Episode 9, featuring Jeffrey Nash detailing how he created the Juppy. Now, we had a little bit of technical difficulty with that audio, and that's all me, but I think this episode has too much good info not to share it with you. So here we go.
What I found to be extremely helpful was things like meditating, listening to motivational speakers, because you need that motivation every day.
You're listening to Entrepreneurs Over 40, the show for somewhat mature entrepreneurs and side hustlers. And now your host, Greg Mills.
Our guest today is a former Marine where he was in charge of security for the presidential helicopters. After he left the U.S. Marine Corps, he went on to work in sales and also as a manager for Men's Warehouse. While there, he generated millions of dollars in revenue and perhaps more importantly, served as a mentor to his coworkers. He went on to invent a baby walker, left the Men's Warehouse, and after almost 15 years, started his own company. Without further ado, let me present to you Jeffrey Nash, the inventor of the Juppy.
Good morning, Greg. It's a pleasure for me to be talking to you.
Pleasure's all mine. Jeffrey, can you fill in the gaps from that intro, though, and tell us what's going on in your life now?
What's going on in my life? During the pandemic, I was stuck in the house for about 13 months, and I was just about ready to retire. However, after going through the pandemic and seeing, what awaits me should I retire, I decided that I was going to start an entire new career in renewable energy.
Oh, wow. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. During the period that I was off during the pandemic, I kind of, maybe the last 5 or 6 years, I've been very interested in renewable energy, solar power, to be specific. And I started to look at some of the companies that are in Nevada. And, I did some research, a lot of research actually. And, I was very interested in possibly hooking up with a company that had outstanding service, because it seemed to me as though, if I was a customer that bought solar paneling, I would want to make sure that if something went wrong, I could pick up the phone, 24/7, and somebody would actually show up. So what I did was, when things started to loosen up a little, I went to about 4 companies and interviewed. And out of the 4, I decided to go with this one particular company named Orange Burst that has a service through Palmetto. And just an outstanding company. And so I'm having a good time, learning about solar energy and how it's going to help the future as far as power is concerned.
Now, are you going to be an employee or in sales for that company, or how is that going to work?
Yes, I'm going to be selling.
So kind of an affiliate or a commission basis, I imagine?
Yes, 100% commission, yeah.
What's going to happen with the Juppy?
Oh, no, the Juppy kind of runs on its own right now. We advertise on Google, and, from time to time, I'll get wholesale offers, but I'm very particular who I sell it to. I've had situations with the Juppy where, I've said no to people because of their customer service. It's very important to me that if a customer has a problem with our baby walker, that somebody gets back to them almost immediately.
That's a great business model. I know a little bit about your origin story, how you came to invent the Juppy, but could you explain for our audience how you came up with the idea for it?
Yeah, I was in Los Angeles, and my granddaughters had a soccer game. And while we're, watching the game, I noticed that a mother was teaching her child to walk on the side of the field. And she bent over, and I had seen thousands of times in my life, and I could see that she was having a hard time bending over and walking the baby. I mean, just looking at that, the design of the Juppy just jumped in my head, even though I had seen it thousands of times. And it just wouldn't leave. It just wouldn't leave. So after I got back to Vegas, I had a seamstress, Taylor, put together, my vision of what a Juppy should look like. And after about the fourth one that she did, that was it. That was the design I was looking for.
So how'd you get that first run of Juppies manufactured, and how'd you fund it?
Well, I funded it with, my own cash. I had about $50,000.
You're a better saver than I am.
Well, during that time, there was a lot going on. As a matter of fact, it was during 2010. And the economy was like falling out of the bottom, and I wanted to do something on my own. I didn't really want to work for anybody anymore. So I met someone who knew someone that could get this baby walker manufactured in China. So my first run was through this person. It didn't turn out that good because I ended up spending a lot more than I would have had I gone out and found my own manufacturer overseas.
Hindsight being 2020.
Yeah, these are the pitfalls, that one faces when you're just beginning something that you've never done before.
There's a lot of information online, but in 2010, it sounds like you just went in and broke each portion of the problem down and, tackled it.
Yeah, you're starting out and you're in an arena that you know nothing about. So you have to rely on, your vision, your perseverance. You try to stay open-minded. Like a lot of people, I think, have the wrong perspective when it comes to failure. I embrace adversity and, I try to stay as optimistic as I can.
I think that's where, our public school system has kind of let us down a little bit. They've taught people that it's not okay to fail.
Right, exactly. Listen, in every disadvantage, there's an advantage. And, again, to stay positive is so important because you're going to run into so many situations that could devastate you. There's a lot of people out here that pretend as though they are professionals or they're the best, especially when it comes to marketing and analytics. They all say, we can do this, we can do that. And initially, they took advantage of me initially. But it didn't take me long to say to anyone that would call me telling me all that they could do. I would say to them that, well, here's the thing. I believe that you are as great as you are, as you say you are. And because I do, this is what we will do. For every Juppy that you sell, I'll give you 10%, but I give you nothing up front. Nobody wants that deal.
Well, if they're really good, they would take it.
Yeah, exactly. If you can do everything that you say you can do, then this shouldn't be a problem. But see, a lot of companies want to, they want to hook you into a 6-month contract and charge you, $800 per month. And who knows what they're doing.
What's been some of your biggest challenges? It sounds like one of them, at least, is finding honest brokers.
My biggest challenge would have to be with Amazon. Again, you have a situation with Amazon where when we started, we were the only baby walker like the Juppy on Amazon. And within 3 years, Amazon got inundated with knockoffs or products that were very, very similar. And when I call or email Amazon, I would get deaf ears. So that can be discouraging. So, my solution to that was to take our product off of Amazon and only sell it on our website, thejuppy.com.
I've heard other people talk about Amazon and
yeah, nobody's perfect, and Listen, I understand. We even had a situation where Babies R Us, wanted to put in a big order. And, of course we were excited, to get the purchase order, from Babies R Us at the time. But when I read the contract, there were numerous protections for Babies R Us, but none for me. So, I called the purchasing agent and I said, listen, I don't see any protections for us. So, we're not going to do business with you. And she says, well, what do you mean? Everybody wants to do business with us. That may be the case, but we're not. And fortunately for me, I did that because had I not, I would have gone out of business because Babies R Us 3 years later went out of business.
And they would have taken your product with them and used it to liquidate.
Well, exactly. I wouldn't have gotten any money out of the deal. I would have lost a lot of money.
Oh, yeah. And I've heard similar stories with a rather large retailer who shall remain nameless. They become your biggest customer and then they drive all of these concessions. If you bend over backwards to meet the concessions and you're unable to service other customers, and then it's kind of a race to the bottom with them.
Exactly. So, my whole thing is that, listen, I'm very proud of the fact that, we've been in business for 12 years. I even ran into someone while I was selling men's clothing for a company after the Men's Warehouse. I was fitting her husband in a suit, and I noticed she had a baby with her. And while the husband was in the dressing room, I said to her, have you ever heard of the Juppy? And, she just stared at me, never really said anything. Okay, so the husband comes out of the dressing room. I'm marking his suit up, and she had gone outside and came back, and in her hands, she had a Juppy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'm very happy that people are getting to know, about the Juppy. It takes a while, like I say to people all the time, even when they introduced sliced bread, it took 10 years for it to catch on.
So what's been your marketing strategy overall for the Juppy?
Overall, we advertise on Google every day, and, we do a considerable amount of business, because now it's becoming an organic thing where, Patty down the street got the Juppy and she says, oh, she doesn't have to bend over, the baby loves it, hey, honey, why don't we get one?
Kind of organic marketing that just happens naturally.
Yes. I'm just happy that I got an opportunity to invent something that nobody else had thought about. It's been relatively successful because of my attitude. I don't worry about, are we going to do $300,000, in profit this year? I'm not interested. What I love is that we have a product, we continue to stay in business, and we continue to sell them every day. And nobody knows, what next week or next month or next year brings.
Did you ever consider going on Shark Tank?
Something? Shark Tank called us. And every Monday we would get on the phone with the producers and we would go over the script. And, for me, it's again, I have to have full control because this is my baby. Let's say somebody on Shark Tank says, I want to buy in 20%. Okay, now that they have 20% and now that they're on Shark Tank, they get 100% of the say. I was very concerned about that.
I can understand that.
Yeah, and, the fact that, this is all scripted. They would say things like, okay, so they would say this and you would say that. No, but I really wouldn't say that. For TV, you've got to say that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wasn't aware that they did so much scripting or rehearsing.
Oh, yeah.
Prior.
Well, you wouldn't know that unless you were inside.
Right.
So that didn't excite me. Again, I'm not that money motivated. when it comes to this particular thing.
Sounds like you're just in it for the long game and for helping people.
Well, that is true. Like I never looked at this as, okay, this is going to be the thing. This is going to be the Powerball of my life or megabucks of my life. No, I'm going to take my time and I'm going to cultivate this just the way I want. Nobody's going to tell me what I need to do or when to do it when it comes to the Juppy.
Well, let's get ready to wrap this up. What's the best business book or book that you would recommend for somebody that's looking to start their own product or has their own invention?
Well, I don't know so much if there's a book that I've read that, helped me with this. And I've read many different books. What I found to be extremely helpful was things like meditating, listening to motivational speakers, because you need that motivation every day, as you're going through the trials and tribulations of navigating through all the things that come your way, when you're trying to set up a business. A lot depends on your attitude.
If you got a good attitude, you can make it through, and if not,
like you're going to, continually think about things that you shouldn't be thinking about, like failure.
Is there an app or a tool that you'd recommend that you use in your business or that you've used?
No, we got very familiar with AdWords and analytics, Google, and that works for me.
Well, that's a wrap. I'd like to thank you, Jeffrey, not only for being on the show, but also for helping save the backs of parents and grandparents everywhere. One last question. Where should people go to buy a Juppy and help their children learn to walk safely?
They can go to the Juppy, JUPPY.com.
All right. Well, thank you again, sir.
Greg, it's been my pleasure, sir. Have a wonderful weekend.
Now, that was another great little episode with Jeffrey Nash. Again, I apologize for the audio quality. It's not often in the podcasting world that the guest comes on and sounds great, and the host sounds like he's in a fishbowl, but here we are. I've learned from that, and will do my best not to make that mistake again, and maybe that's a takeaway in and of itself. Make the mistakes and learn from them, and move on. Now, Jeffrey got his start with the Juppy by observing a common problem, and rather than casting it aside, he came up with an innovative solution to it. Now, the hard work didn't stop there. It really just begun, as he had to figure out how to mass produce it, market it, and get it in customers' hands. But as Aaron Walker in episode 2 pointed out, everything's figure-outable. Google is our friend, at least in this case. Now, Jeffrey preaches the importance of having a good, positive attitude, as well as meditating and listening to motivational speakers. A lot depends on your attitude. If you have a good attitude, you can do anything. If you have a bad attitude, you'll think about things that you shouldn't think about, like failure. Jeffrey's marketing strategy for the Juppy has been to lean heavily into Google AdWords, develop organic traffic, and rely on word of mouth from his customers. Never underestimate the power of a mom's testimonial to all of her friends, because you not only helped her child learn to walk, but also saved her back. Another takeaway from Jeffrey's life that I learned is that it's never too late to start something new. At an age where most people are retired, he's gone on to start a new opportunity with the solar energy company. Now that takes a lot of gumption, but it also makes life interesting. Now next week, we'll have Travis Ross back on, talking about how he created the Hydro Flask and what he is doing now that excites him.
Thank you for listening to Entrepreneurs Over 40. Check us out at entrepreneursover40.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or your favorite podcast directory.